Hello, shalom, salam, and hola. Welcome to the Hot Jewish Podcast. I'm Michael Valdes, aka Hot Jewish Energy. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, well, X now. Twitter, shit. Instagram, X, and TikTok at Hot Jewish Energy, at Hot Jewish Podcast, and at Michael T. Valdes with an S at the end. Welcome back, everybody, to the hot Jewish world, if we're going to call it that. But today we have an amazing guest on, Amy Albertson. Y'all probably already know her, but if you don't, she is an amazing activist and advocate online, Jewish activist and advocate. It's given that she's Jewish. Most of the people that are on the show are Jewish at this point, but she's amazing. I actually spoke with her in an unreleased interview in May, and since October 7th, I wanted to refresh it and make it more current, and she said, yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot more that we can talk about, so she's going to be on today to do a redo of the interview, which I'm very thankful for. Yeah, this is technically my last guest of the season, not filming it as the last, but this is my last guest of the season. You guys are going to get the finale with just me next week, but it's been very, very interesting this entire season. Most of it was already pre-filmed, so I already know what happened. But yeah, it's just so cool to see this season and the last season too. And happy to say there is going to be season 3. That you're hearing it from me now. There's going to be season 3, and there might be another project in the works. I can't talk about it now because it's not fully formed, and I don't know if it's actually happening, but there may be another project. But yeah, very exciting things, and I probably already said it throughout the season, but if I didn't, I am in grad school right now, which I wasn't in before. In season 1, I was still trying to figure things out. I was accepted into grad school, but now I'm in my second semester, and it's been very interesting seeing everything that's been going on in the world with Israel and Jewish community being a student again. So yeah, that's been very, very eye-opening. But I'm not going to take up more of the time because I want all the time to be on Amy. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be back with Amy Albertson. This is the Hot Jewish Podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm here with Amy Albertson. Hi. I would say welcome for the first time, but this is a welcome back technically because I did film with Amy back in May of last year, but as we all know, things have really it's been like complete flip.
A lot has happened since then.
In your personal life and in the world. So
True.
I want everyone to get all the deets, but welcome back. And I'm really happy to have you back. Thank you for being here.
More than happy to be here speaking with you. And yeah, thank you for this opportunity to refresh the conversation because there has been obviously very important things that have been happening.
Yeah. First off, because I want to keep it about you. That's what when I invite a guest on, I want people to see who they are outside of what they do, outside of the work. I want people to see you as a person, unlike some people online who don't consider you a person, which is a little upsetting and hard to see. I want people to get to know you heritage-wise, family life, where you grew up. You grew up Northern California or Southern California?
Northern California. Yeah. So I was born in Sacramento, California, and I grew up there my whole life until I left for college. I come from a mixed family. My mom is Chinese American and my dad is Ashkenazi American Jew who grew up in Southern California. And I grew up in like a very American household, I guess you could say. So my Chinese family, I'm actually third and fourth generation American on my Chinese side. So we're like very American, and I'm third generation on my Jewish side. So my parents are pretty assimilated. I always knew growing up that I was Chinese and Jewish, and we definitely did, certain things. Like I celebrated Jewish holidays, but they were very different than most other people because my dad's mom, my grandma, she's a self-proclaimed atheist Jew. So she's really not into religion, but being Jewish is important. So we still did holidays like Hanukkah and Passover and things like this, but they were just kind of like on her own terms. Like we did Passover, but we didn't read a Haggadah. We read a different book that told the story of Passover, just wasn't a religious text. And I like didn't go to synagogue. I wasn't affiliated with a community or anything like that. So things were like a bit different. And I always like went around telling people, if they asked me like, what are you? I'm like, oh, I'm Chinese and Jewish. And then, people always have the question of how can you be half Jewish or something? People can't see my air quotes if they're not watching the video, but how can you be half Jewish and, all of these things? And I didn't have the language at the time to explain it to them. But I was very, I knew that that's what I was and I always talked about it. And I also grew up in a place where it wasn't odd to be in a mixed family. A lot of my friends were in mixed families. I don't know if people know this, but it's very diverse. And so being in a mixed family, being Asian was not really something I thought about too much as far as like feeling different because I wasn't that different from everyone around me. It wasn't until I went to college actually that I was told that I was like a person of color, and it was like the weirdest thing for me to be like, oh yeah, I guess that's true.
For context, Amy went to Portland State, which is in Washington State, which is very much not diverse.
It's in Oregon. It's in Portland, Oregon, which is 95% white.
You definitely felt more outcast-ish when you were in Oregon.
Yeah, it was just kind of the first time that I was really faced with, I think also being a woman, like growing into my adulthood as a female, I became much more aware of the things that I faced in society as an Asian person, as a woman, as a Jew, as an Asian woman and a Jewish woman. Those things definitely became more prominent as I got older. I guess with childhood ignorance was bliss. Right?
I feel that on a different level. I was in yeshiva for 9 years.
Oh, wow.
Up until high school, Orthodox yeshiva, and it was a bubble. There was so much just like you didn't know what was going on around you. Yeah. So when I went to high school, it was kind of a shock, kind of not, because it was still largely Jewish population in public school. But yeah, I totally feel you on that. When you were at Portland State with all of this, I don't want to say ignorance because of what would you consider it ignorance that was happening? Is that a good way of describing it?
I think a lot of it stems from ignorance. So for people's context or reference, like Portland State is very much like a lot of these universities that we see on social media or in the news where they're having antisemitism. And it's actually really sad because when I was there were definitely these problems. And I ended up starting an Israel group on campus and dealing with a lot of antisemitism and anti-Zionism, which is the same thing if you ask me, and we can have a whole discussion about it. And it was really hard because I started with Hillel, and at the time our Hillel director was like, we don't want to talk about Israel, we don't want to touch it, like let's stay away from it. And I was like, that's not going to work for me. So I started the Israel group, and eventually when I was graduating, Hillel really became much more enthusiastic about it. They decided to start sponsoring the Shaliach, the Israeli Shaliach that came from Israel to be in the community. And the Israel group grew after I left under a new Hillel director. It became one of the biggest groups on campus, having partnerships with everyone, even the student council president, like attending events, the president of the university supporting the group and things like this. So they really made a lot of progress. And I've since checked in with them since October 7th, and it's very different now. BDS is back on campus. And so that's really a sad story to hear because they did so much work to really remedy all of that anti-Semitism, and it's almost as if it never was there before.
Would you say that they're suffering attendance-wise? Definitely acceptance-wise, but attendance-wise, has it been as strong as when you were graduating or when you were on your way to graduating, or now it's just completely plummeted?
So I'm not actually sure about that, like those details of their events. I'm guessing that it must be a lot harder. It's just like when I was there was a very loud presence of, there was a pro-Palestinian group that was very loud. They had a lot of events.
How long ago was this?
Oh my God, I'm older than people think. I graduated in 2013. So that was like the years before that. And so when I was there, there was a lot of anti-Semitism. When I started the Israel group, we would have all of our posters were constantly being defaced every day. Me and my other student leaders would walk around the campus to replace the defaced posters. We tried to meet with administrators about it, and we were told basically things like, you chose to support a controversial viewpoint, so sort of like suck it up, I guess is what they were saying. And over time after I graduated, the Israel group continued to work, and that presence really faded. The loud Palestinian activism was basically gone. And the students that I spoke on a panel like even 2 or 3 years ago at this point with other student leaders throughout the generations, I guess you could say. And they were like, when I told my experiences, they were like, wow, like we are so appreciative for the work you did because we did not experience the things that you did. Like things are so much better now. And now, after October 7th, it's not the same. We're back to square one, I guess.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can definitely relate on that front of things just really going backwards within it. Oh my God, it's only been like 3 months if you think about it. Well, no, 4 months.
118 days.
You'd think it's like things are just going back to how they were a little under 100 years ago, which is very scary. But with all this said, when you left the school and the Hillel was thriving, and then now it's kind of gone backwards, what did you do after you left?
So after I graduated from Portland State, I went to Israel for an internship program. I did a Mossad program for 6 months. I did an internship in Tel Aviv. And that was actually that was the time in 2014 when the 3 boys were kidnapped, and it eventually led to Tzuk Eitan, which I don't remember the English name for it, but a past war. And so
I remember that.
Yeah, it was a very interesting time, to say the least, to be in Israel. After my internship in the middle of the war, I left. I went back to America, and then I was kind of just like, okay, what do I do now? I finished college, I finished this internship, where am I going? And so 6 months later, I made Aliyah and I moved to Israel, and I lived there for 6 years.
That takes a lot of guts going. I don't know if I'd ever be able to do Aliyah. I admire the people who do it because you're going to a completely different country, completely different environment, I mean, I know most people in Israel speak English, but 3 different languages within the country. And how was it for you when you initially moved there?
So definitely, I'd say moving to Israel is not something that you do. If you're American, most of the time moving to Israel is not something that you're going to do because you want an easier life. Of course, it is easier, so to speak, in the ways of like living a Jewish life because you just have to exist in the country, and like there's so many Jewish things built into the country. But as far as like things being easier, it is not easier. Like you're going to make a lot less money. You know, you're probably not going to be able to afford to have a car, and you're going to have to take public transportation everywhere. And, you know, like you said, the language barrier is definitely real. As much as many people do speak English, like the society still runs in Hebrew. So it's like you're going to get your electricity bill in Hebrew. You're going to have to figure out what that means. I'm sure people have heard the horror stories of the bureaucracy in Israel. So, you know, dealing with anything from the bank to the DMV to getting your whatever things you need to get done is just really difficult. And it's in Hebrew, and everything's kind of just running, I don't know, like Israel may be the high-tech capital of the Middle East, but when it comes to their government bureaucracy, it's like stuck in the 70s. So that all is like very difficult. But also, I'd say that living in Israel for me was like so transformative. It was a really important time in my life as like part of my development as just as a human, and then also especially as a Jewish human.
And in Israel, with that growth that you had, it led into you being more vocal online, which is how probably most people know you.
Yeah, I guess. So I started off on Instagram as the Asian Israeli. And basically it just came out of like, I had been, since my internship program, I had a blog and I'd always shared on my social media. This was in the time where like Instagram was just starting to really develop, and like influencers was a very new thing. There were not a lot of influencers. It was definitely a lot less saturated of like a thing. And so I always had shared my story. I'd always shared a lot about my life in Israel. I'd always shared a lot about my opinions. And and people were like, yeah, you should really do this. And so one day, it was actually Yom Kippur, and one of my best friends, Axel, who used to work at Masa with me, we were like, okay, let's do this. Like, I'm going to change my username and we're going to do a photo shoot. So on Yom Kippur, we went around and did a photo shoot. And then I started posting every single day stuff about Israel. And when I was in Israel, my content was much more fun, you could say. It was more lifestyle. It was more about like, what is life like living in Tel Aviv? What is it like being American in Israel? Obviously, there were certain like controversial things or, topics that came up. I was also there during many elections, so I would do things like bringing English language resources to people about the elections. And yeah, it was a lot less of the direct activism that I do now.
You were there from what year to what year?
I made Aliyah in January of 2015, and I made Yurida. I hate that word. I came back to America officially in January of 2021.
So you went through COVID over there.
So I escaped to America for most of COVID. Literally, yeah. So a lot happened to me during the onset of COVID. And so I was like, okay, I know I'm going to get stuck here and like, I can't like be stuck here. So I went to America. Like as I was on the airplane, when I got to America and landed, I saw the news that the airport was closed and like they weren't letting anyone out. I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of got stuck there for a few months. Then I came back to Israel. Then I went back to America during the second kind of wave of quarantines and closures. And during that time in America, it was when I was like, okay, I think we're moving back to America. So I went back again to get my stuff and I just went back to California.
Do you miss living there at all?
I don't know that I miss living there. I would say I definitely miss aspects of my life there. I definitely miss my friends. I definitely miss food. I definitely miss living, walking distance from the beach. But I kind of got to a point with Israel where I realized that I really love Israel so much, but I don't think I need to be living there. And I think one of the biggest things about that is really just like not having family there. I don't have any family there. And, obviously I was trying to get a husband, but that didn't happen.
It happened eventually.
So it's okay. But I got the man here in America. So we're okay.
Yeah. So you came back. You're very much adjusted now. I mean, it's literally 3 years later, which is a little over 3 years later. So now we're going to get into more current things because I kind of wanted to see your perspective on, because you lived in Israel for 6 years from an American perspective. And you did visit Israel recently. You went.
Yes.
I remember you went on a trip.
So I went on an AJC project interchange trip with a delegation of influencers. I was literally on the ground for like 72 hours. It was insane. But yeah, I did go post October 7th. We visited Kibbutz Be'eri. We visited a lot of different survivors and families of hostages. And so many displaced people. We went to the exhibition of the Nova Music Festival and heard from a survivor there. We did some volunteer work, which I think is great. It was a really fast-packed trip, but it was really important.
When you started getting all the news on that Saturday, what time did you find out everything was happening? Because for me, at least, I got back home at 1 a.m. I was at a Shabbat, and then I started seeing that there were rockets coming in, and I was like, oh, that's normal. That happens. They're used to it. And then I saw that like people were like paragliding in and the Jeeps were coming in, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And so what was it like for you hearing all the information at first?
Yeah, so I live on the West Coast, so I was probably up a little later than you, so I was hearing a little bit more. And it was kind of a similar thing though. Like I was starting to see the reports of the rockets and I was like, here we go again. But I was like, this happens and they'll take care of it. Iron Dome, yay. And then I started to see more things about like they were saying people were getting kidnapped and taken into Gaza. And I actually have a really good friend who lives in a moshav in the south, but she also is religious. And it was Shabbat and it was Simchat Torah. So I was like, oh my God, like I'm going to message her, but she's not going to answer. And now I'm going to have to just wait for the holiday to come out to find out like if her and her family are okay. Thank God she was okay. She did lose family members. And so then I just was like waiting it out and checking the news. And I woke up the next morning to messages from Tel Aviv Institute that we're having an emergency briefing, hopped on the briefing and found out, found out everything they knew at the time, and which was already horrific. And yeah, I hadn't posted on Instagram for a month at that point, just because I was going through a lot of personal stuff. I like was considering like retiring from Instagram, and then this happened, and I was like, I have to say something. I have to start posting, and here we are.
You're still here.
Yeah,
that's a good thing though. We need people. We need you. So I don't even know where to go from here.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It is a lot. Would you say, having visited Israel post October 7th and you living there for 6 years through a lot of major changes that were going on, would you say that, obviously it's a major shift, but I want to hear it from your point of view?
In what do you mean? Like,
is there a stark difference?
Oh, yeah, so Israel, definitely, I think Israel felt different post October 7th, but also oddly enough, so everyone was like, oh my gosh. And I was also really preparing myself, like, what am I going to see? What am I going to hear? Like, and I did see and hear horrible things. Like the stories I heard, like we all have heard horrible stories, but I just heard even more, like things that I will never repeat. Like I don't want to repeat them to anyone because they're horrible. And
did you get to view the video too?
Oh my gosh, no. And I always, like, people kept asking me, like, what if they ask you, like, what if you guys are going to watch it? I personally will not watch it because I think the people that need to watch it are the ones who are like, I don't believe this happened. I don't need any more trauma.
It's interesting because when I got invited to view it, and I mean, obviously, a lot of it I had already seen, and I think a lot of us had already seen because it was surfacing around social media, like the burnt bodies. I had already seen it, so I wasn't shocked because I'd seen it, but there were some things that would not be allowed online because of how graphic it is. And they actually, when we finished and they were talking with us, they said that the reason they're inviting people and it's an invite-only situation is because they want to make sure that they're showing it to people who will gatekeep the information and make sure that it ends up in the right places where it needs to end up to make change. Which, it's interesting because they actually said, we're not going to show it to the people who don't believe it because most of those people aren't even going to change because they've seen a lot of this information and they're still denying it, which is really sad to see.
I hear what they're saying. Like, I think maybe the people that need to see it are not necessarily the people that are so like hell-bent against us or like so radicalized, but it's like the people that are maybe standing alongside them, or the people that are indifferent, or the people that are unsure, and it's like, the people that are like, oh, but this person's telling me that didn't really happen, so I don't know what to believe. Okay, you want to see it? You need to see it to believe it. I personally don't need to see it to believe it, right? So because I've already had enough, I think, trauma from what I have seen online and just being engaged with a lot of the stuff, I was like, for my own like mental health and safety, if I was offered to go see it, I wouldn't do it. But my hat really goes off to everyone who has, and I'm really grateful for all the people that have, especially people with platforms, so they can share like that they saw it and what it really was.
You got to go there. You've seen enough. You got to see the destruction. You got to hear the firsthand accounts, that's such a powerful thing to do. And it takes a lot of willpower to be able, I mean, you were only there for 3 days to go, land, do all of what you did, hear the stories, view everything for yourself, and come back and be able to tell people what you saw. That's more important even than viewing the video because you're actually there yourself.
Yeah, and to be honest, going to Israel was very healing and empowering for me, as much as it might sound odd. So, everyone was like, kind of like, how are you going to be when you get back and all this stuff? And I'm already in therapy, so I was like, yeah, I'll go to therapy after. But
you're like, I already got things that I'm working through.
I have a therapy appointment because I'm always going to therapy. But yeah, so being in the presence of Israelis was actually very very healing to be there with everyone while going through this, to just be in a place where like there's no question that the people around me understand what I'm thinking or might be going through, versus, you know, being in America, especially being where I am now, like I never can know what anyone on the street might think. Like my parents and my husband are like, maybe don't wear your Israel necklace or your Jewish star or your hostage t-shirt or whatever. And I'm like, and I think about it sometimes, you know, it's like I prepare myself to go out of the house wearing these things, even though I guess I always kind of thought about it, but not in the way I do now. Now I'm like, who knows what random person on the street is going to see this and like have something to say. And so being in Israel was like very comforting in that way of like not having to worry about that. And everyone, also the spirit of the Israeli people is just so strong. These people have gone through literally the worst thing ever. And of course they're sad. Of course they are going through so much pain, but they're also really in an action mode. And this is the Israel I've always known, but like it's just so different now in this situation where every single person is like, what do we do now? How can I help? What do I need to do to help someone? Even people that you're like, no, we should be helping you. They're like, but I can help someone else, even though I'm also being helped, right? So to me, that was just like very empowering, and it really reignited my my energy for like the work that we do online. It makes a difference. It's important. It's appreciated, and everyone just really has to do their part. That's really kind of what I came away with.
I'm with you on that. As Jewish people, what's going on, I know there are some who are staying silent out of fear for career loss, friendship losing, which I think if you're going to lose friends over this, they weren't your friends to begin with. But before, I was so hell-bent of like, you need to be speaking out. If you're not, you're a coward. It's a scary time, and I'm trying to be as empathetic as I can be with these people who may not be outwardly supporting, but if you talk with them in a private conversation, they're like, I'm with you on this, or they're like, I support you. I'd rather that than someone be completely indifferent in both scenarios, which I've had. There are people who I've talked to that are not outwardly supportive, and then I ask them in person, they're like, yeah, I don't really have an opinion on it because it's not I just don't want to, which is so sad.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts about that. Like, you know, a lot of people in the community or whatever are like, how can you stay silent and you need to speak up? And of course, I want more people to speak up. I would love for more people to speak up, but I also understand that like it comes with a lot of risks, and I can see why someone wouldn't want to be speaking up about this. But I also feel the double standard that comes with that, where it's like, you know, for other causes, it's much easier to speak up about it. And I feel like it shouldn't be that way to speak out for the Jewish people, but you really can be like ostracized, you can be fired, you can be attacked. And so I understand why someone, especially someone without like, you know, skin in the game, so to speak, would not want to put themselves or their families in harm's way.
I think what shocks me even more is people who have been speaking out for like years, like me and you.
Mm-hmm.
And now since post October 7th, all these people that we've been talking to or that we've known, they're just coming out of the woodworks and being like, oh, you support genocide, you support ethnic cleansing, how can you say this? And I'm like thinking, I've been saying all of this for years and you haven't noticed a damn thing. And now you're saying something. If you had a problem with it before, you would have said it before. And now all of a sudden you have a problem with it.
Yeah, it's like a lot of bandwagon people, even more than usual. I mean, there's always been those people. Like in college, you know, I would go to like anti-Israel protests to hand out pamphlets of the Hamas Charter. But anyway, so, you know, there were always people there that were like, yeah. And like, how do you know about it? And they're like, yeah, I just got on the light rail and everyone was going to this rally, so I went too. And I was like, why would you do that? You don't even know what you're talking about. I mean, we see the videos of all those people. The other thing that's also a little shocking to me and is kind of sad in some respect is so many in the Jewish community who are now woken up to anti-Semitism. But like you just said, you and I have been talking about this for a long time. And And unfortunately, this rise in anti-Semitism has been going on for years. And what we see now is just the floodgates of it really opening in an even bigger way, where people are completely shameless, completely emboldened to say and do anti-Semitic things.
Anti-Zionist Jews, which
oh my God, don't even...
people love to tokenize them, especially now. The Queers for Palestine, Neturei Karta. It's a really interesting time to be alive, where people just tokenize minorities within our minority.
Yeah, and they use that, like I'm Asian, and all of the Asian solidarity accounts that I follow pretty much have, in one way or another, shown support for Palestine and Palestinians, which I'm not inherently opposed to that, but it's the lack of acknowledgement or care about Israelis or Jews. Asian Jews exist. Asian Israelis exist. Hello, Noah or Argamani, Chinese Israeli, held in Gaza right now. Her mother is from China. She has a brain tumor and she's waiting for her daughter to come home, right? So the fact that they can just ignore, regardless, and there shouldn't even need to be Asian Israelis or Jews for an Asian solidarity account to call out terrorism. But that's what I'm seeing. And I'm, seeing a lot of them also say, like, as an Asian, you should clearly be, standing in solidarity with Palestinians. And I'm just like, it's not, that's not it. Like, and also standing in solidarity with Palestinians shouldn't mean standing in solidarity with terrorism, right? Like, okay, fine. Like, I personally do support Palestinian liberation in the fact that, like, okay, yes, like, we have these two peoples and both of them deserve a home. Okay. But I'm sorry, like, what is happening is not the way to go about it and is not okay.
Yeah. There are plenty of people, which I know there are some people on the Israel side who completely decimate this point of view, but you can be pro-Palestinian, also pro-Israeli. You can be pro-Muslim and pro-Jew. There are ways to be pro-everything. The thing is, which is what I'm sure you've been seeing this too, there are just a good chunk of pro-Palestinian people that are also just inherently anti-Semitic, because so much of the propaganda is rooted in anti-Semitism. And how do you think pathway should be for people that want to support both sides but without hurting the other, if that makes sense?
That's a really great question. And I ask myself all the time, like, so many of these people, the majority of the loud, most active Palestinian movement right now is anti-Semitic. I'm sorry, like, it cannot be denied at this point. Does that mean does that mean that I think everyone who, wants liberation for the Palestinian people is an anti-Semite? No, I don't think that. But the movement needs it needs a cleanse, I guess you could say. I guess I shouldn't use the word cleanse. It's like triggering.
It needs a refresh.
It needs a refresh. Like, people in your movement who truly believe in peace, you need to be louder and you need to talk to your peers. But because so many people, we don't see people doing that. We see most people buying into this anti-Semitism. And so that's always when, I have to ask myself the question, like, I am usually one of these people that's very careful to play the anti-Semitism card, you could say. I don't think that everyone who says something anti-Semitic is an anti-Semite, because anti-Semitism is so embedded into so much of society and has been for thousands of years that a lot of people say things or believe things and they don't even understand what it is that they're saying and believing. And a lot of times when it's explained to them, they're like, oh shit, like, sorry, can I curse?
Yeah,
they're
you
like,
can say whatever you want here.
They're like, oh my gosh, like, why? Like, I didn't realize that. I didn't know that. Like, thank you for letting me know, right? But that's not what's going on here with this loud pro-Palestinian movement. And that's where it's like the difference between being pro-Palestinian and being anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. And what we are seeing is not pro-Palestinian activism. What we are seeing is anti-Semitism. When you are in the streets, you are calling genocidal slogans, telling Jews to go back to Brooklyn. Like, there was a protest at Stanford recently where they were yelling at them to go back to Brooklyn.
How do you think we ended up in Brooklyn?
Go back to Brooklyn, go back to Poland, all these things. When you're saying, intifada, which is violence, you're not calling for Palestinian rights, you're calling for the destruction of the Jewish state. Why are you not on the streets calling for something positive? I don't understand this. And it's clear as day. If you go to a pro-Israel rally, it is pro-Israel. You know, our chant is like, Am Israel Chai. The people of Israel live, not kill anyone else. And I can't speak for every pro-Israel event around the world, but at all the ones that I've been through so far, we acknowledge Palestinian suffering and death. We pray for them. But that is not what happens at a pro-Palestine rally. It is all about death. It is all about destruction of Israel. It is all about dismantling. It is all about getting rid of Israel. So, you know, I just go by what I see, what I hear. And if you want me to think differently, then show me. But so far, no one is showing me.
It's a very stark difference. I've definitely seen that too, where most, I don't want to say all, obviously, because like you said, we don't know all, but at least most of the rallies that I've seen for pro-Israel have been nothing but love, joy, praying for all those that are suffering. And I think that's just embedded in the Jewish spirit in general, and support and being an ally for the allies that are in the room, being an ally to the Jewish community. You share in that Jewish joy, you share in those values just by, I hope what I'm saying makes sense. It's,
Yeah,
you feel it.
You can feel the difference in the energy when you go to one of these things. Like a pro-Palestinian rally feels like it feels violent. It feels angry. And when you go to an Israel solidarity rally, that's the other thing. It's like, we don't protest. Like we are rallying in solidarity. It's like a very different thing. And even, you know, of course there are people who are pro-Israel who are extremists. There's extremists everywhere. And, you know, I remember when I went to the march against antisemitism in Washington, D.C. last year. When was that? December? November? I don't remember.
The one that was on the National Mall, right?
Yeah, the one on the National Mall. So I went there and I remember, you know, when a speaker is saying something about the Palestinians and someone's like booing someone else, like calling them out, like, hey, no, don't boo that. Like, we do care about them, you know? So that's the thing, is like people are calling each other out for stuff like that. But I don't see that happening at a pro-Palestinian rally.
You don't see that at the rally, or what we would call the protest. You don't see that online, and you don't see that in the media either. People still believe that Israel indiscriminately bombs places. They believe that Israel bombed a hospital intentionally when Israel didn't even bomb the hospital to begin with. So, and the media still hasn't apologized for that false reporting. Hell, there allegedly, I don't know if this is 100% true, but allegedly there were reporters stationed in Gaza before October 7th happened. So somebody knew something.
Yeah, it's insane. And also what's so insane to me is like people are, you know, they respond to you on social media and they're commenting like, no one's calling for genocide of Israelis. Open your ears, open your eyes. And I'm like, I don't understand how, like, you're standing literally next to people who are literally calling for that. So I don't know if you're just not hearing it. Also, Hamas is like going on TV, doing interviews, literally saying that they're going to do October 7th over and over again if they have the chance. And you don't hear that and you don't believe that. But then when Hamas is like, oh yes, 27,000 people, or how many ever they've decided it is today, have died, and they can determine that within, you know,
they can determine exact names. And I'm just like, Israel can't even...
within 15 minutes of the incident, when Israel has taken months and still has bodies missing. Like, I just don't understand. Like, you listen to them and you hear them loud and clear when they say this, but you don't hear them when they say something that you don't like. So I call bullshit.
I do as well. I call bullshit a lot in the form of memes, which have been very interesting now with putting the memes. I've gotten into a new thing where I call bullshit with pop music, and it's been very, very healing, and people have been enjoying the music, and I'm just like, I'm enjoying it too, because I'm just
very here for it.
I think we've all just gotten to a point where we're calling bullshit, but we're laughing at the same time because of how ridiculous everything is.
I honestly, like, all the time, I'm just like, do I live in a prank show? Like, am I gonna just like wake up one day and someone's gonna be like, got you, like, you're on Punk'd? People are probably too young to even know what that is, but
I know Punk'd. I know
you know, but like, I feel like other people that might be listening, maybe they're too young. But yeah, like, sometimes I'm just like, I read a new thing and it's like, is this like, I don't know, what are one of the, like, The Onion, like, or is this a real headline? Is this, or like, sometimes in group chats, people are sending a video of someone and I'm like, are they being satirical or like, are they serious? Like, is this real? It's insane.
We definitely get a lot of those videos. Oh, for those of you that don't know, I don't know if I should be saying this, but I'm gonna say it. There is a Jinsta Zionist Congress group chat, and it's just like a shit ton of people online, and we're all in this group chat, and people are just sending the most ridiculous things of other people doing ridiculous things, and we all just look at it and we're like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I'm like, most of the time I'm like, is this a satire or is this person serious? Like, is this person making fun of one of these like Palestinian activists on Instagram, or like, are they for real? Or, like the nonchalant ways that people say like anti-Semitic things. And I'm just like, wow.
This is going to be in the history books. I cannot wait to see what they're going to write in the history books, because at this point, I don't even think the history books are going to be real.
I mean, I don't know what they're going to say either, but that, like, on a more serious note. But that was also one of the reasons why when I got offered the trip to Israel, like, I was like, I have to go. Because when I look back on this time, I want to be able to say, like, I did everything that I could.
On a lighter note, I think let's bring it
back.
The fact that you're married now, since we last spoke in the unreleased interview that you guys won't see, which is almost the same as this interview, but just like now we've definitely built more of a relationship since then, which has been so cool to see. But how is married life? What has happened with you personally since the last time I saw you in May?
I mean, the biggest thing is I got married in September. Yay. So yeah, when we spoke last time, I was just like really deep in
wedding planning,
which, my gosh, if you can afford a wedding planner, get one. That's my biggest advice for this whole podcast episode. No, but I got married. It was a really great day. One of my most successful reels is my husband smashing the glass under the chuppah. Yeah, so that's actually, I mean, maybe that's something we want to talk about. Like, so my husband's not Jewish, full disclosure to everyone. If you don't like it, I don't care.
Why is it anyone's business? It's your life. You do what you need to do.
No, I'm sure after this gets released, I'm gonna get messages about how I'm ending the Jewish people by intermarrying, but whatever. So yeah, so I got married, and I actually get a lot of messages from other people that are like, oh, like my partner's not Jewish and we're trying to figure out our wedding, and like, how did you decide what to do? And balancing things like if your partner's family has another religion, or maybe you have more Orthodox people in your family, all kinds of questions. And it's like, my best advice that I was given, and the best advice that I can give, is like, just try really hard to be focused on what you and your partner want, because it's your wedding and it's your marriage, and anyone who loves you enough will be there no matter what you decide to do or not do. So for me, my husband is really not super big on religion. My family's not religious really at all either. So my family was very much like, do whatever you want. His family is pretty into church, but they didn't really intervene a lot, but we still wanted to like respect them and kind of honor everyone's traditions. So I wanted a chuppah. So one of our friends actually built it for us, which was so nice. That was like really sweet. One of my husband's friends was just like, yeah, I can build that for you. And he came over and he built it.
Where did you have the wedding?
We had the wedding at the hotel that my husband works at, but I'm not going to tell people what it is because
we keep locations secret here.
Yeah. Half the people on Instagram think I still live in Israel, and I'm fine with that. I'm like, yeah, sure. Let's keep it that way. You never can be too safe.
You really can't. But I think that's going to be refreshing for a lot of people to hear with your journey through being in, I don't want to like an interfaith marriage, if we're going to call it that, even though he doesn't really observe.
Yeah, like being in a mixed marriage. I mean, I'm open to talking about it. I do like to keep things about my personal life sort of private. It's a lot. I think it's a lot of like safety for him and me and our family. Like, it's a thing that I think about, like when I have kids, will I show their face on social media, right? Like, I don't know yet. Just because I don't know, people on the internet are so awful, like they're so mean. And it's actually a discussion that like, since October 7th, we've kind of had. So my husband, he's not Jewish and he doesn't know so much about Israeli history, Middle East history, the conflict, these things. And he's learning a lot and he's seeing a lot of things. And he definitely doesn't live in the, mostly pro-Israel Jewish bubble online that I do, obviously. He definitely sees other things. For some context, also, my husband is Black. So,
you have that on top of, it's like really a mixed marriage.
Yeah, there's just a lot of elements, going into this. So,
yeah.
But that has been a thing that he sees things and he asks me if they're true and all these things, but he also like feels compelled to speak up when he just sees something like so awful or so stupid. And I've told him like, don't comment, like it's not worth it. But sometimes he really wants to, and he'll like show me a comment and be like, what do I say to this person? Like, I know they're wrong, but I just don't know what to say. And so it's a little bit of a level of frustration for him that he like, there's this learning curve and, there's so much to learn. He's trying to do it really fast. And he also just thinks it's ridiculous because he'll tell me things like, that he commented to some woman or whatever who's posting things that are not true about Jewish people. And he starts like telling her, like, that's not true, blah, blah, whatever. And then she's like, yeah, whatever. Like, where are you learning this? And he's like, well, actually, my wife is Jewish and, she's an Israeli citizen and she lived in Israel. So like, that's where I learned this. And then someone accuses him of...
It's like he has a Jewish card. Like he's like, I got all my information, which he can gladly have it.
Yeah. And then he's like, and then they come back to him and they say like, oh, no wonder you're just brainwashed by your white colonizer wife. And he's like, actually, my wife's not white. So joke's on you. Yeah. And he's always like, this is ridiculous. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, yeah, I know.
He is an honorary Jew in our books.
Yeah, for sure. I told him, I was like, you might not be a Jew, but you're a part of the Jewish community now.
I give you our card. Here you go. I'm kidding. But wow. That's also very refreshing to hear, that he's willing to learn, that he's open to talking about things, and that he's going so far to defend. Like most people would just shrug away, but that's really beautiful to hear.
Yeah.
You married a good one.
I like to think so. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, we got married September 3rd and then, this all happened October 7th. So it definitely has been hard. Everyone's like, oh, like first year of marriage and whatever, but like I'm going through it. So he's having to deal with that and it's a lot.
On that note, with everything, that the good, the bad, the in between, I want to leave it with this because I think people, especially you were talking about before, about debating sometimes whether to wear your necklace or to say you're Jewish when not asked, and all that goes around being prideful in your Jewishness, Judaism, whatever you define it as. What would your advice be to people who might have that same fear and want to try embracing their Jewishness, especially after October 7th? What would your advice be for them?
Sure. I think, look, everyone has to make their own decisions and weigh their own risks. Like there are certainly places where like I would say you're not safe to be visibly Jewish, in which case like you need to weigh your safety. But I will also say this, the majority of time, I think almost all the time actually, that I've ever gone out with, I've been wearing the numbers every day. Like Hirsch's mom has said, I've been wearing my dog tag every day. I don't wear my Israel necklace everywhere, but I wear it a lot. And honestly, the average everyday person has no idea what's going on. They are not that concerned about it. As much as we see so much awful stuff, and there are a lot of loud people, most of the average everyday Americans don't really know what's going on. But what does happen is a Jewish person does know what's going on. And so if they see the Israel necklace, they know it's Israel and it makes them happy and it makes me happy. And I would just say like, I'm not trying to diminish the threat or the dangers that can come with it, but like the empowerment is so much greater than the fear. And once you kind of get over that hump, I think you'll really feel it. And the other thing that I've really been thinking about is, okay, how can I balance this fear of an anti-Semite recognizing my Jewish star or something like that and attacking me and how can I still wear something Jewish that makes me feel like I'm expressing my Jewishness and that other Jews will know, so we can still have those moments of solidarity on the street. So there are tons of Jewish symbols and things that and ways to express your Jewishness without wearing a Star of David or an Israeli flag or the shape of Israel. First of all, the shape of Israel, most people don't know what it looks like.
And a lot of the necklaces, from what I've seen, they're pretty generic, and people could think that you're pro-Palestinian too, which is interesting.
Yeah, like I have this one and it technically says Am Israel Chai on it, but it's so tiny, so like no one would know. But ways that, like, other symbols you can wear a Hamsa, which also people don't know is related to Judaism.
I have someone in my school who wears a Hamsa, and she's not even religious with anything.
Yeah, Hamsas are also really trendy right now, so no one would even know. You can wear Hebrew. Mm-hmm. Only advanced anti-Semites can recognize it.
Advanced, experienced anti-Semites.
Only like advanced, obsessed anti-Semites. The Chai symbol. Most people have no idea what it is. They think it's the pi symbol. I've heard people say, like, my friend wears her Chai necklace every day, and someone asked her, like, why do you wear a moose necklace every day? And she's like, what? Yeah, so Hebrew, Chai, Hamsas.
Pomegranate. That's
pomegranates. There's just so many Jewish symbols that you can wear to really partake in that expression of your Jewishness while still protecting your safety, because let's be real, anti-Semites don't actually know a lot of real stuff about Jews, so they don't really even know when something is a Jewish symbol. You know, the members of the tribe, they'll recognize it, and you can have those sweet moments.
I've definitely had some of those sweet moments, and it makes it all the more rewarding, and I'm sure you've felt that too.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much for coming back. Thank you for sharing what you've been through personally, what you've observed, and I hope everyone follows Amy online. She's going to plug herself right now, but she's giving a lot of invaluable information, and she's also just a cool person. There's some people that don't have any personality. Amy for sure has a lot of personality.
Oh my gosh. I'm so shameless online too at this point. I'm like, I cannot be embarrassed. I do not care. Like,
your videos, they've gotten so much more unfiltered, and I love it. I'm such an advocate for just being a little raunchy, or not, I shouldn't say raunchy. Well, the book that you were in was a little raunchy, but
which my mom loved, by the way. I had it sent to, because I send everything to my parents' mailbox still, because I don't want to send it to like my house. And my mom received it first and then brought it to me, and she was like, I love this book, it's so funny.
For those of you that may not know, me and Danielle, who was on last season, we made a book called Hot Jewish Hanukkah. It was released in November, and Amy was a part of the book. She played a fictionalized version of herself, and she was actually the leader of the Hillel, which is very, very fitting.
Which is true. That was me in real life.
Yeah. And it was very heartwarming.
So you can find me mostly on Instagram, but also technically on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, and TikTok at the Amy Albertson. But Instagram is really the spot to find me. And I do try to answer every DM if I can. So feel free to slide into the DMs. And yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you guys for watching or listening wherever you are. You can find me at Hot Jewish Energy, at Hot Jewish Podcast, and at Michael T. Valdes with the name at the end. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you, Amy, for being here again. And you guys have a great day and night wherever you are. And please stay safe. And Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai.
Thank you for watching. This is Hot Jewish Energy. If you like this episode, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share your favorite moment in the comments. If you're on any of the podcasting platforms, give us a 5-star rating and let us know your favorite part of the show. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.